Welcome back to Beyond the Bar podcast where we discuss legal issues. And today we have a amazing topic to discuss with a wonderful woman in the law. My name is Oksana Davydova with my co-host Margarita Moshe. If you'd like to introduce our guest, please.
Yeah, so today on this episode of Beyond the Bar, we have an amazing guest with us today, Sarah Masheyev, formerly Sarah Harris. She has come a long way in her law school journey, in her decision to become a lawyer. I know her personally for many years. She is a very good friend of my daughter, Isabella, and you guys started out together in medical school and the medical program. You know, how many years ago? Probably like 7 years ago now. Yeah, because she's almost done. So please tell us, we all want to know, our inquiring minds, tell us what made you come to this decision to switch.
So I have like a very, I guess, tumultuous origin story when it comes to how I got into law school. I was not one of those people that was like, as a child, I always want to be a lawyer. That wasn't me. I actually always wanted to go to medical school. And I actually started in that combined dual degree program where I met Isabella. And in that first year, I think there was just a lot going on in terms of like, in my life. You know, I was dating the guy that I knew would be my husband. I was in a completely new school environment. You know, it was my first year, I guess, of college, you know, starting on this, long career path. And then COVID hit. And with all those things together, I kind of just took a step back and I was like, I need to do a little introspection here and really ask myself, why am I doing this? And why am I here? And what do I want out of it? And what do I want out of my life? You know, because all these things were happening that I kind of never expected to happen my first year of college. I didn't think that I'd be getting married. You know, I didn't, I guess, know what the long path kind of entailed, what the schooling was like. I'd worked at like a few doctor's offices and I was like, okay, I really like this field, but I was never really in it. And I always liked science, but that wasn't enough, that wasn't enough for me to really keep going down that path. And when I asked myself those questions and I was thinking about like, what are my skills? Why do I want to be here? Yeah, I really want to help people. And yeah, I really like science, but is that enough of a why, for me to do this? And I think when COVID hit, it was a really big eye opener for me to kind of be like, had this happened a few years down the line, that would have been me. That would have been me in the front line. That would have been me in the hospital 24/7, not seeing my family. Is that like a sacrifice that I'm willing to make? And I think as a physician, that needs to be your entire purpose. That needs to be your entire being. Your patients are the ones who come first. Not necessarily your family or your wants or your needs. Your patients are what comes first for you. And I think seeing that and like all the doctors I remember that I followed on Instagram who were showing like day in my life, in the hospital and this and that. And I was like, I don't think that I want this, And I really, really had to do like a lot of work on myself and really get to the bottom of like really what my skills were. What did I want to contribute to the world? Like, what do I want for my future? And at that point, I really just wasn't sure, but I knew that medicine maybe wasn't the right route for me, and like being in this program maybe wasn't the right decision. So I took COVID as maybe an excuse to kind of take a step back, and I enrolled in St. John's undergrad. I stayed the biology major to keep all my credits, and I thought maybe I'd like stay in the medical field because, like I said, I really did enjoy it. I think science and history were like my favorite subjects. So and then at the time, my husband, who was my boyfriend, he was in his first year of law school. And the way that he would study for all his exams would literally be like, give me his outlines, and he would just like teach it. He would be like, okay, say a topic, and I'm just gonna like blurb back like whatever I know. And I felt like I got a front row seat to every single law school class that they offer 1L because that's how he would study, and that's how I would help him study. And that was like my first kind of eye opener, and I was like, wait, like, this is so cool. Like, this is so interesting. My father is an attorney, and I always saw what he did. I was actually going to say, your father is a well-known attorney in the workers' comp field for many years. Yeah. And how did maybe he play a role in influencing you? Or so it was more your husband than your dad? I mean, seeing my dad, I guess, always kind of made me not want to be a lawyer. Because I was like, I don't like what he does. Like, he's just in court all day, constantly litigating. And I was like, I don't want to do that. Like, I'm such a big people person. I love to talk. I like to interact. I like to, deal with stuff. And I didn't want to do that, you know, and I always thought that that's just what lawyers did. And I thought that's kind of what the schooling was like. And I never knew that the classes that you learned were so interesting. And mind you, I'm coming from a biology background where I'm learning about like molecules and things that don't apply to life at all, you know, that you could see. Whereas my husband was learning about contracts and real estate and development and business and, you know, all these types of things that I thought were so interesting. And I felt like I could really like relate to and that I really wanted to learn more about. You know, what he was teaching me in those study sessions wasn't enough. I'm like, I want to learn more. But I was still an undergrad and I'm still thinking about like what I want to do. I don't want to make a rash decision. You know, this is the rest of my life. And I remember we were sitting down and we were talking about like, what are my skills? You know, what am I good at? What do I enjoy? And all the skills that I had really aligned with being that of an attorney and maybe not that of a physician. I think some of them have an overlap. You know, I really love like an attention to detail. You know, I really love looking at things like holistically, analyzing. You know, I'm a big people person. I like public speaking. I love history. I like reading. I like writing. You know, all these types of things that I enjoyed that I like to do. And I felt that they really aligned with what a lawyer does. And I really, you know, I spoke a lot with my husband. I spoke a lot with attorneys. And I'm like, I think that this is the right path for me, you know, and I decided to switch after I graduated. I was like, you know what? I'm going to go to law school. I took my exam. I got in. And I remember my first day of law school and just sitting there and the professor speaking. And he was talking about the law and the profession and, you know, what it entails and what like they expect of students and what they're going to be. And I really just remember sitting there and having this like sense of calm like wash over me and just be like, I made the right choice and I'm in the right place. And it was such a good feeling, especially when you're like so torn. I think like one of the worst feelings to have is doubt, you know, and not knowing what you're going to do and where you're going to go. And you feel so lost. And there really weren't a lot of people in my position. Everybody I knew was going for medicine or dental. You know, no one was really going for law at that point. And I also had a kid, you know, my son was 9 months at the time when I started. Wow. So it was definitely like a bit of a isolating time, but I just remember that first day when I sat there and just listening to the class and, you know, learning what we were learning. And I was just so happy and so blessed that I was there. And law school really was the 3 best years of my life. I loved it. I know people hate school. I had a wonderful experience. I felt like every day there was a blessing because I really like all the cards were against me. Like I never should have been there. You know, I never would have ended up there had all these, I guess, little things happen. So,
so tell us.
I felt very blessed. Yeah.
Did you go straight from college to law school? Did you take any time off?
I never took time off. I had my son my last year of undergrad, graduated in May, and then started law school in the fall. So
I mean,
that's
like,
how
law school in itself is so challenging.
Yes.
We were discussing it in our last podcast, our experiences were, but you also had a 9-month-old.
Mm-hmm.
How did you manage to juggle being a new mom and first year of law school, which is can be quite grueling?
You know, sometimes I think it was just like a little bit of delusion, like thinking that I could do it and like just kind of having that confidence in myself. Like people have done it before and people will do it again. And I think I could do it too. And I honestly was always of the school of thought that, you know, getting married, having a family, and having kids is not mutually exclusive from going to school, getting an education, and having a career. You know, 100%. I really don't think that those two things cannot coexist with each other. You know, is there sacrifice? Of course there is. But are you willing to make it is the question you need to ask yourself. Not can you do it? Because you can do it. It's just like, do you want to, you know, is the question. And I think for me, I never wanted to, you know, put my life on hold just because I wanted to have kids or put having kids on hold just because I wanted to go to school. And I also believe that you need to have like three things. You really need to have support. That's number one. You need to have proximity and you need to have the finances. And I think if you have 2 of the 3, you're good. You're good to go. You know, because when I had my kid, you know, my husband was in school. I was in school. He was working part-time. Like the finances we didn't have, but we had the support and we had the proximity. And there's no way I could have done it without my family, who I live very close to. And I chose to go to a school that was very close to me. Yeah, you know, that was a choice that I made. All my friends went to a different school that was in Long Island. They all went to Hofstra or, you know, other schools. And I didn't know a single person going to St. John's, but it was 5 minutes away from my house and 3 minutes away from my son's daycare. And I'm like, that's the place that I'm going, you know? So that was the choice that I had to make. That was a sacrifice that I had to make. You know, maybe I could have gone somewhere where I had a full scholarship, but I chose to go there, you know, for that reason, because I had kids. So, It's definitely a lot, but you can do it with the right tools and with the right group around you and the right support system. 100%.
Amazing. I think that's really inspirational for a lot of people to hear, especially our young women nowadays who are somewhat on the fence and don't know which way they're going to go. If they're going to, raise a family, are they going to go to school? Are they going to do both? How are they going to do it? So I think, you have a lot really to look up to. And listening to this, I think it'll definitely influence a lot of women in the right direction. So I want to say thank you for that, and I admire you for that. And nice job.
Yeah, I agree. And just listening to you, I'm thinking when I was in law school, right? The juggling act alone while you're in law school, you have all these classes, you have all these, exactly what you just said, right? You have to study, you have to make sure you're keeping up with everything. So if you could just walk us through like 3 years, right? So at this time, I guess your son would have been 4 when you graduated, give or take.
He's turning 4 this November.
Right.
Yep.
So give or take. And so how did you manage? Like, it's not just being a mom on its own and then running a household and then being in law school. It really is it's not enough hours in a day to do half the things we do. I think we could tell you from experience. So how is it like
walk us
juggling
through a day in the life?
I'll tell you first. The motto that I live by is you can do it all, just not all at once. And I think, just to preface, like that's the most important thing to keep in mind. That this idea that's like sold to moms, oh, it's a balance. It's a fallacy. It doesn't exist. It's a lie. And frankly, it's just not good. When you're balancing two things, you're only giving 50-50 to each. And who wants to give 50% to anything? You know what I mean? The goal is to give 100% to everything that you're doing. So what you were saying, juggling, that's exactly what it is. And that's exactly the metaphor that I live by. That you have to think of yourself as someone who's like juggling all of these things. And every ball that you're juggling represents another sphere of your life. One of those balls is motherhood. One of those balls is friends, family, school, exams, parents, whatever you got going on. Everyone has different ones. And the key to understand is which ball is glass and which ball is rubber. So while you're juggling them, which ball, if it falls, is going to bounce right back up? That's the rubber ball. That's the low priority at the moment. The one that you're juggling, and if it falls, it breaks, that's the glass ball, and that's the high priority. And every single day, you need to ask yourself, what balls am I juggling today? Which ones are glass? Which ones are rubber? And which ones do I need to add my attention to? And which ones can take the back burner? And that's really how I get through life, is constantly reevaluating, the priorities in my life. When I have an exam, making dinner and picking up my kids, maybe that's the rubber ball. Maybe my mother-in-law or my mom could pick them up. Maybe someone else can help out with dinner, but I need to study. That's the glass ball. I need to study. I have an exam. Or, the holidays are coming up. My final's not for another 3 weeks. Maybe I could go with my son to school because it's, Mother's Day, I don't know, a Mother's Day show or something like that. I want to be there for him, So you constantly need to reevaluate. These things are constantly changing. And I think that being in law school really helped me understand my priorities so much better, and really helped me kind of juggle these things more effectively. And I feel like after 3 years, I could finally call myself somewhat of a pro a little bit, but that was really how I got through every day. And if you want like a little day-to-day, should I like walk you through it, kind of how it was?
Yeah,
sure.
Okay,
so, the thing is your schedule is different every day, but mostly, I'd wake up in the morning, we'd make breakfast, pray, then I would take my son to daycare, which was on my way to school, which was great. I'd head to my classes usually for the day. Sometimes I'd have a break in the middle for lunch or something like that. But I would take my school time to focus on school things so that when I was home, I could focus on home things. I really didn't like to study at home when my kids were there. Like, if I would study, it would be like at night after they're sleeping. Like, I would try to get as much work as I could get done during the day. If I had breaks, I'm in the library, So I would try to do as much work as I could while I was in school and do work like on the back end and prepare. And then when the day was over, if I had a later class, somebody would pick up my son and then I'd have to go get him, come home, make dinner, or I would pick him up, make dinner, whatever, feed, wash the kids, do all that stuff, put them to sleep. And then by the time I'm done cleaning up and everything, it's 9 p.m. And that's when I would start studying, usually, like if I had more work to do. So it was a lot of late nights. I'm not a big morning person, more of a night person. So it was a lot of late nights for me. And that's kind of how it was. And we made it work. I was really blessed that my husband He's an attorney, and he had just gone through law school, so he really knew like the sacrifices that are required. He knew the work that it required, and he was the one who was like always pushing me to like do more and work harder, and he knew that I could do it, and he always really supported me. Like he would if I was studying, he would never call me and say like, "Oh, I need your help. I need you to come home." It was always like, "If you need more time, take your time." You know, if I wanted to just relax and watch a show, sometimes he'd be like, "Wait, don't you have to study?" You know, so he was always really supportive, always there to really help me, and really understood what I was going through, which was a really, really big help for me.
Definitely having a husband. We were
Yes.
talking about that last time. Is really super important to have your partner support you
Of course.
and understand you and be
Yes.
sympathetic with what your decisions are, and also motivate you and push you to do better. So
Absolutely.
And work with you.
Absolutely.
And help you, like you said. You know, if you need to study, you can stay, and I'll take care of what needs to be taken care of with the kids and stuff. It's a very big help. So I wanted to also ask you a question that I'm sure everybody's gonna probably ask in the comments or is thinking. There's always this interesting stigmatism or stigma, I guess you can call it, but they always say, did you ever feel such thing? There's the thing, mommy guilt, you know, when they say
Does anyone ever? The question is, does anyone ever not feel that? You know,
I think every mother feels mom guilt.
I
Till this
think-
day.
Till this day.
because I still feel mommy guilt no matter what, you know.
My kids are grown and I feel mom guilt.
Oh my God.
So like, do you feel like it would, in terms of like raising your children, right? Do you feel like it's something that, I guess, you know, they see how you do, how hard you work, and in the future it's something that they can also take from you in terms of a role model?
Absolutely.
Yes.
I
and-
think that was one of my like main motivating factors is, you know, I had my daughter actually when I was in my second year of law school. And I can't wait to tell her how I was going to class pregnant with her, you know, how I took finals 2 weeks after she was born, and tell her, you know, you could do it too. You don't
Right.
need to put your life on hold. You know what I mean? And you could do it. I did it, and you could do it. And if you want to, I'm going to support you, and I'm going to be there for you, you know? And, I think that it's going to make me a better lawyer, you know, because I had children. Like I said, I know how to prioritize my time. And I think it makes me a better mother, you know, because like I said, I would focus on school things during the day so that when I was home, I was fully present. You know, sometimes I find like when I'm home with the kids for a long time, you know, all day, I'm already like so done with them by the end of the day, you know, like I'm barely paying attention, you know.
Yes.
But I valued every minute that I was able to spend with them because I always felt bad. I'm like, oh, I'm in school. I should really be with them, you know. And when I was home with them, like I really was home with them. You know, we'd eat together. I would cook with him. You know, I have like a food Instagram, so I would cook with my son, and we would spend that time together. And we read books, and we would hang out, and we would talk, and I really felt like we were spending such quality time, and that was so important to me, you know, and I think he felt that. And I remember actually listening to something once, and it was saying that there's 9 minutes a day that are the most important in a child's life. It's the first 3 minutes when they wake up, the first 3 minutes when they walk through the door after school, and the last 3 minutes before they go to bed.
I heard that.
Yes, and I tried so hard that those 3 minutes would be like filled to the max, you know. When he wakes up, it's I love you, cuddles, good morning, you know, you're my favorite, you're the best, you know. When he walks in the door, same thing, you know. And I really tried to make those 9 minutes every single day count. And I think everybody has mom guilt, but you can't let it cripple you.
Right.
You know, it's there, it's creeping, it's in the back of your mind for sure, but you can't let it take over your day. You know, you can't let it take over. You could cry a little bit about it and then move on, you know, and that's really how it was, you know, because we have so much going on. You really, you can't dwell, you know.
Absolutely.
And really just try your best to be present when you're present and focus on what's important when it's in front of you. And that's really what I would do.
So you just mentioned that you had finals 2 weeks after you had your daughter. How did you manage to give birth and take finals? I mean, the finals are basically your
Yeah.
entire grade for the whole semester.
Oh my God.
How did you
That
manage? Was that the hardest moment that you've had to go through in law school? And if not, what was?
I'm sure the outlines help.
I think it was crazy. You know, when I found out I was pregnant with her, and my doctor told me my due date was November, Thanksgiving, like weekend, I was like, are you kidding? Like, I could have gotten pregnant at any time. Like, had I just gotten pregnant a few weeks later, I'd give birth during my winter break. Have a nice 3 weeks to just relax with the newborn. I'm like, why? Like, why does it have to be this week? And I was like so upset, you know, like I really wanted this baby. And But I was like, how can it be like Thanksgiving? Like every law student knows Thanksgiving's like the worst week of your life and nobody's enjoying the turkey. Like everyone's thinking about finals, because your whole grade is just dependent on this one exam in December. And I remember my whole pregnancy, I'm just like, oh my God, like how am I going to do it? How am I going to do it? How am I going to do it? And I was like, you know what? It was meant to be. Like that's whenever she's born, that's when she's born and I'm going to make it work. And my friend, she always told me, she's like, Hashem never gives you a test you can't pass. If you're in a situation, you can get through it. He knows that you can get through it and like you're going to make the best of it. And that was really the emunah that got me through it, And I remember November rolls around. I have my big belly. I'm walking through school and I had my whole calendar decked out for November because I had all the review sessions in there and, all my doctor's appointments and when my finals were. And I was like, I'm literally going to go to school like till the last day that I can't. And I had all those review sessions locked in like last week of November, December. And I'm like, I'm going to make it. I'm going to make it to these review sessions. And I had like a day that I circled in my calendar and I wrote give birth ? I was like, I'm going to manifest to give birth on this day. I like read a study that the least popular birthdays are like holidays, like New Year's, Christmas, Halloween, because like people want to like spend it with their family. So they like, tell themselves they're not going to give birth that day. So I'm like, if they could tell themselves not to give birth, I can like convince myself to give birth. I'm like, I'm going to give birth that day. And, it worked out. I actually gave birth on that day. I ended up getting to school, like going to school 5 days later for the review session. I made it for all the finals. They asked me if I wanted to push them. I was like, I'm not pushing them. I'm doing it. And you know what? I really was blessed with the most incredible baby. When she was born, she slept all day. Nobody bothered me. Everyone knew I was studying. I had a newborn, so no one's really coming over. People were cooking for me, which was great. People were taking care of my son, so I didn't have to worry about that. I was just home with a newborn who slept all day, and I was studying. It ended up being, like, so perfect. Like, God really knew that this was going to work out. And guess what? I took all my finals. It was the best semester I had in all of law school. I got A's in every single class, and then I actually got the A+ in one of my classes, which is only awarded to like 1 or 2 students who get the top grade. It was my highest semester average for all of law school, and I don't know, God just knew that I could do it. You know what I mean? And I was just like, I gotta like take a deep breath, focus on what's important, and lock in, and that was it.
Listening to you, you're giving me PTSD because I'm like, I was in law school and I didn't have kids, and listening to you, I'm like, that's amazing. It's not easy. I think we could both attest to it. It's not easy. Everything you have to go through, and then, kids and giving birth. But let me ask you this. First of all, congratulations, because I'll tell you what you've been through. It could not have been easy, and you talk about it like, oh, it was nothing.
I think looking back, like in the moment, I know I called my sister crying. I remember calling her crying, saying like, I can't do this. Like, it's too much, especially with all the hormones. Like, forget about it.
Right.
And she's like, Sarah, you knew this would happen. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I had a baby before. I know what it, postpartum is like and what studying is like. Like, I'd gone through it. And, like, I knew it was coming. But, like, when you're actually in it, you're like, oh, my God, I can't believe I'm here. And I think you just sometimes need to just, like, take that step back and be like, you know what? I got to get through it. Like, that's the only way. Right. And I almost like didn't have a choice. Oh my God, I just gotta do it. So, but yeah, you were saying
in the 3 years you were there, right? Did you ever feel like, was there ever a moment where you felt like, you know what? I don't know if I could do this. Did that ever come across your mind?
You know what? I can't say that it really did. I don't know. I really never thought of it like that. That I can't do it. That this isn't for me. I really. Like I said, I enjoyed like every step in law school, what it was. With kids, I was like, I'm just gonna make it work. I don't know, call it blind confidence, call it delusion. I don't know what it was. But it really got me through. That's amazing. It really got me through.
I hear that you made a lot of references to religion, and I know that religion plays a very important part of your life, and you're a very spiritual person. Tell me, what kind of an impact did that make in your beliefs every day? Like, how did that play like into your days?
I think it's a constant thing on my mind, like all the time. Like I really like always believe like nothing is from me. It's really from God, and it's all like meant to be. And I think sometimes going through life knowing that God is on top of everything that you're going through is such a relief. Because someone else is like kind of holding the reins, and that everything that you're going through it's for a reason, and that you could get through it, and there's like a bigger picture at the end of the day. So like it really, like, that faith really like leads me constantly. You know, like anytime I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing or like what's going on, like I just know it's gonna be well. You know, like think good and it will be good is like, you know, I that's just what gets me through, you know, and it's really like gives me something to hold on to, you know, when I feel lost. And it's very special. I'm very grateful that I have that, you know, grounding. I went to a whole year of seminary before I started college. So that was like a really special experience for me, to really like come into myself and come into my faith, and really find, you know, that connection with God that I was like searching for so many years. And it really led me through
That's
life.
amazing. That's amazing. Well, you have many passions. We know.
I was gonna ask about this.
We're gonna get to it.
Yes.
So Oksana, please.
You mentioned earlier that you like to cook, and you have an Instagram page regarding food. I think Eats by Sarah, right? So I found you a while back, and I started following you. And sometimes some of the things you do are amazing. I'm like, I want her to come cook for me.
Anytime.
And so tell us a little bit about that, because I feel like that's I watch you sometimes, and I feel like that's where you feel. Is it like a creative outlet for you to just like do whatever and be whatever? Because
I watched her when she was still in medical school. She had amazing videos. I mean, not as many as she has now. And I know a lot of women follow you, and they really love your recipes and your videos. It takes a lot of time to make them.
It does.
Tell us a little bit about how you started it and your passions with that.
So I actually started it like almost 8 years ago. It was when I was in high school. I always loved food, and I really liked photography. So I would always like go to different cafes and take pictures of the food, and I just had like all these pictures on my phone, and I'm like, I need to do something with them. So I just made an Instagram account, and it was private. It was just my friends, and I would like post, you know, wherever I went, all the restaurants and stuff like that. And people used to make fun of me for it, and it was cringy and all these things. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. It's fun, you know? And then when I went to Israel for the year, I started posting restaurants, you know, because there's a lot of Americans in Israel for the year. And I would post different places that I went. And I think it like gained a little bit of traction, you know, there. And then I got married and I had kids, and it really like evolved, you know, into this, I don't know, creative space on Instagram, like really a community that I feel like I have of people that like cook and have kids and feel like they can connect, and you know, they make my recipes, and when people like come up to me and like tell me this, like it like literally makes my day. I'm like, wait, you made space for me at your table, like you made my food. Like, you know, you don't realize when you're posting something on a phone, like that screen is in like so many people's hands, you know. And sometimes it like shocks me, like, oh wait, people know like who I am. They know that I like cook. They know that I do, because to me it's just like this fun thing that I do, and I like just post it. And like you said, it really is a creative outlet for me. It's really something that I love to do. I think I love the fact that food can connect people, and that it's something that you share. There's this like instant gratification to it. You know, you make it and then like people eat it and enjoy it and they tell you, and it's just the best feeling. And then you get to eat it, so it's like amazing. So I really love to share it. I love to cook and make it pretty, and you know, the presentation and the videography and the photography. I really like enjoy that aspect. It takes time to edit, definitely. It was something like I would do at night or like on the weekends when I had a little bit of time. And I think the feedback really kept me going. You know, the fact that people were like, you know, like, I never really cooked before, but then like, you know, you made it look so easy, so I started making this, and like now I make it every Shabbat. Or like, you know, I never knew how to make this dish, and my husband always liked it, and I finally started making it because of you. And like that really just like kept me going. The fact that I had this ability to, I guess, like inspire people in a way, and I'm like, if I got one person to do it, like it's worth it for me.
Well, you have quite a following. I know.
Yeah,
so you're definitely doing something right, and your videos are actually very appealing, and you know they definitely catch the eye. So
they're fun, you know, they're fun. It's like you make it. Sometimes cooking could be like, oh, you know, I gotta do this again. But, you know, you make it fun. You make it like exciting and something new, something different. And I think that's what drew me in. You know, it's like something
I especially like the what's in my fridge today.
You know, that really started because that's just how I cook. You know, like I'm not a planner. Like, I don't know what I'm making that morning. Like, I can never, like, plan a grocery list and, like, go to the store and get XYZ. Like, it's like, what am I in the mood for today? Like, what's in the fridge and what can I do with whatever's, like, not going bad, you know? And And that's kind of like
And,
what
and
I
it
do.
comes out a whole gourmet
Yeah.
meal you can't even
but
find in a restaurant.
I feel like that's most of us. You're like, I don't know, no, I also can't do that. I can't go in and say, okay, I'm gonna cook this, so I'm gonna go buy all these ingredients.
Yeah.
I'm like, whatever I have, I'll cook.
Yep.
Whatever comes to mind.
So yeah, it's amazing. But I'm going to go back a little bit to your whole law school
Yeah, sure.
journey because I know that while you were in law school, you also you had a lot of projects and you were involved in a lot of things. So I'm actually going to bring in a guest friend who went to law school with you.
Oh.
And surprise guest is Daniela. Daniela, please join us and tell us a little bit about how you observed Sarah in the law school environment. I know that you had mentioned that she started a club,
Yes.
and
I was actually just about to talk about that.
so do tell us.
As a fellow St. John's Law School alum, I witnessed Sarah as honestly the girl that can do it all. Okay, I know her on a personal level. She has been a friend of mine for many years. I know her like through family, through the neighborhood. And honestly, what I can say is, Sarah, you really are an inspiration to so many people. And I'll tell you why. Because one, besides being a mom, a law student, a wife, you're also an influencer.
Micro.
No,
You're getting there.
You're a rising
You're
star. I
You're
don't
a rising
know.
star. Okay, but also you started a club. You influenced other people in law school. So I want everyone to know about this. So can you tell us a little bit about the club, what you did, and what motivated you to start it?
Yeah. So, when I first started law school, like I said, I had a 9-month-old baby, and it wasn't something that I advertised at all. On orientation, when they ask you what's your fun fact, like I have a kid is not something that I would say. It was something I was a little embarrassed about, I'll be honest. It was something that I didn't really want people to know. I didn't want people to look at me differently because I have a kid and because I'm married. I wanted people to look at me like an equal. But as law school progressed, I realized I'm not an equal. I can't do the things that they're doing. I can't go to the bar on Thursday after torts. I
That was a big one.
that was such a big one. Happy hour. I was always sad that I missed those. But, and I couldn't be part of the study groups, that are formed and studying till 12 o'clock in the library. I couldn't do that. I had responsibilities. I had to go home. I had to pick up my son. And I remember there was one time, he was sick. I had some legal writing thing due, and I just was so overwhelmed. And I was like, I wish there was somebody that I could talk to, but I didn't know anyone who had kids because they never spoke about it, And I was the only one in my section, a full-time student who had kids. And I knew there was another girl who's part-time. She was a little older than me, and she had kids. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to call her. I think we need something. I need somebody who understands me and who I could speak to, because you're in a really unique situation as a parent and a law student. You're juggling all these things, and not everybody's gets it, So I really wanted to talk to someone who was in that same boat as me. And I remember I just called her up. I'm like, hey girl, I want to start a club, and you need 3 people to start a club. So she was the only one I knew who had kids. Then there was me, and then there was my best friend in law school who wasn't married, didn't have kids, but she was really supportive, so she was our ally. And the 3 of us, we started the club, and we got everything together. And we actually connected with a lot more parents in the school. We called the club Mothers-in-Law. And then we added
Cute. I love that.
and then we added the PALS, which was an acronym for Parents Attending Law School. For all parents, because there was a lot of dads too, but I think moms just inherently have different challenges. And it was really wonderful. I mean, we did so many amazing things. We used to do get-togethers with the kids. We'd get pizza. We would color. It was a really special support group where we would talk about what we're going through. We would share outlines. We would share stories about our kids. There was a few students who actually she lived in Texas. She left her baby in Texas, and she would and she stayed in New York for school, and she'd go back on holidays and weekends if she could to see her child. So many people were making all these sacrifices, and it really gives you perspective. You always think you're the only one, and then when you realize there's other people going through it too, it really makes it so much better and so much easier. And one of the most amazing things that we did, and I'm so proud of, is we built a lactation room in
Wow.
St. John's. So I was really, really proud of that. That was really special.
I'm going to add to that. I was in pharmacy school when I was lactating, and I remember I used to go to the dean's office, and she was the only one who would let me go because I didn't know where to go. And I used her office. She let me go in there all the time. I think that's a wonderful idea that you did a lactation room.
So when I had my son, I was an undergrad in St. John's as well, and there was a lactation room in the business building, and that's where I would go. I would walk to the business building, and I would pump there. And when I got to law school, also in St. John's, I'm like, I'm not walking to the business building. Like, there better be.
It's practically across the
Yeah, it's
That's a long
impressive. I'm
walk,
like, there's got to be a lactation room here. I mean, it's a law school. Like, people are older, undergrad. I get it. Grad students. And I remember I get there. It's like the first week of 2L. I'm like already like this, and I'm like, I need to find like this lactation room. And I'm asking around everybody, and I'm like, where's the lactation room? Is there a lactation room? And everyone's telling me yes, and no one knows where it is, And I'm like, okay, like, mission, find the room, And I remember, like, going to 3 different offices. They were sending me, like, different people. I finally get somewhere. They're like, oh, it's here. So one lady takes me. It's to the back of the career development office, like, the 4th floor, like, all the way in a corner. She opens the door, okay? It's like a broom closet, okay? There's a desk, cabinets, and a high chair. I'm like, why is there even a high chair here? I'm like, but this is not gonna do. This is not gonna do. And I'm like, you know what? This is law school. Let me do some legal research. What I knew, like, employers were required, under FLSA and stuff like that. I think it's section ATD, whatever, something like that you need to have a space, for lactating employees. And I knew it would apply to students, like, through Title IX and things like that. And I'm like, let me look into the laws, like, what this lactation room needs to have. So I think New York State labor law, section 260C, something like that, has requirements for what a room needs to have. It needs to be a private space with a lock, not a bathroom, a chair, electricity, a fridge to keep the pump milk. There's all these requirements. And the school had none of that. And I'm like, I'm giving birth in 2 months, and we need to get this done. And they were I wrote a whole letter to the deans. I met with them, and they were super, super accommodating. They really put it together. I have to give it to them. And we built a beautiful lactation space. By the time I graduated, I know 5 women who used it.
Wow.
It was really, really special. We got someone to donate a hospital-grade pump. So all you had to do was bring in your parts. You didn't even have to schlep your whole pump. People donated lactation bags that they had so you could keep your milk. There was a fridge. It was private. When we would do, like, events with the kids, we used to, like, color stuff, and we would, we put them all on the walls, like, all the coloring pages that the kids made. And it was really, really special,
that's amazing.
that we got to do that. And I'm so grateful for that space. I used it all the time, and it was really wonderful. And I feel like it left a lasting, impression on the school. I think they understood the importance.
Countless women,
so many women that needed to use it, and not even students. I mean, employees too. Yeah. This is something that people need, and something that's, like, highly overlooked.
It's amazing.
I'm really proud. I'm very proud.
Wow.
Of it.
Now I'm even more amazed.
Yeah. I'm really proud.
Can you give us a little bit of advice for girls or women that want to go into law school but fear it out of the fear of becoming, either getting married, that responsibility, being a mom, or just juggling everything? Just any advice that you give to the younger generation that's thinking about law but fear going into it because of all the responsibility that comes with it.
It's a lot of responsibility, and it's a lot of sacrifice. So that's why I think the most important thing you can have is a strong why. Like, if you're not strong in your conviction as to why you want to do this, you're never going to last. Law school is a beast in and of itself, but the bar, studying for the bar, I don't think I've ever, gone through something as grueling as that, We
don't feel the same
I think that's another podcast, just studying for the bar. I wouldn't see my kids. I would come home at 8:00. It was really insane, but I was so, steadfast. I was like, I really want to do this, and this is really what I want out of my life, and I'm going to make it work, Personally, I think being married in school is so much better than dating in school. I know people are, like, scared of it, but it's the best thing. Like, you don't need to worry about, like, going on dates. Like, you just come home and you're like, husband's there, your wife is there, and, like, whatever, you just hang out, you order takeout. Like, I think that whole archaic understanding of, like, oh, I have to clean and I have to cook every single day. Like, I don't think people are like that so much anymore.
I agree with you.
And, like,
I got married 6 months before I went to law school, and my husband was very laid back. And I agree with you. And everybody's like, what do you mean you just got married? You go to law school? I'm like, okay. One is not dispositive of the other.
Exactly.
And I agree with you. And he was so, like, early what you said, you know, you need a support system. He was so understanding, so good. You know, we'd order takeout. We didn't always cook. He was working, and I was always studying. And it was like, the dining room was only my papers. Nobody was allowed to touch anything there. So I agree with you. I couldn't agree with you more, because it's less stressful in terms of like, oh my God, what do I have to do? What do I then have to do? 1,000%.
Yeah, you know, so it was, and then with kids, to me, what was so special, and you know, I always say, when people are like, how do you do law school with kids? I'm like, how do you do law school without kids? Because I had something else that I lived for. You know, like, people in law school, they're gunners. They're the most intense people you've ever been to school with, you know? And their whole life was school, and that's great for them, you know? But I would come home, and I would have something else to come home to, you know? And it was so wonderful. And I'd come home, and you get that big hug, Mommy, I miss you, you know? And that hug, like, heals your whole day, you know? And it was, like, the best thing for me. And I was so happy that I really had, like, another purpose in my life that wasn't just school. And I knew I was going to school because I wanted to. You know, no one was making me do it. I was making me do it. I wanted to do it. And that made me, like, I think so much more appreciative of it. And, like, I cared so much more about it because I was the one who was making myself go through it, you know? And I was so grateful that I had, you know, something else to come home to, another responsibility that I had that, like, loved me and that I loved, you know? So it was really special. I think it really helped me prioritize my time. You know, I remember, like, my first year, like, I would get so stressed, and I'm like, oh, everybody's in the library so late, and I just can't do that. And how am I going to, like, live up to them and, you know, with them? Because, you know, everything's graded anonymously. Like, nobody's cutting me slack because I have kids, you know?
That's on the curve.
It's all on the curve. Nobody wants to share anything because everyone's graded against you. So it's very cutthroat. And I remember thinking, like, I'm at such a disadvantage. And then when grades came out, I ended up doing better than them. So I'm like, you know what? Everybody has their way that they work. And I noticed people, like, also wasting a lot of time on things that weren't important. You know, I always remember there was this one class, and you couldn't bring your laptop, so you had to, like, write all your outlines, like, and briefs, like, by hand, or, like, type them and print them out. And this one guy's, like, briefing a case, and he wrote in his facts section the street where, like, the car accident happened in the tort case. And I'm like, he wasted, like, 20 seconds of his life, like, writing down the street where the car accident happened. Like, that's so not important to the case. That's so not important to, like, do you think the final's going to ask you, like, which street it happens on? You know what I mean? Like, and it seems so trivial, but I think, like, every second is so important. And, like, you really realize that, like, everything that you're learning in law school, you have to look at it at the bigger picture. It's all about synthesis. Like, it's all about analyzing. When you get to the exam, your fact pattern has nothing to do with anything that you learned. You know, you've never heard that case before in your life. You know, and you really need to, you really need to apply what you learn. You need to look at every case and be like, why am I learning this case? Like, what can I get out of it? And usually it's just a line that you're getting out of a 10-page case. You know, it's just one line, one rule. And it really helped me, like, hone in and focus on, like, that, like, important aspect of, like, every, you know, what I was doing, rather than, like, trying to, you know, care about, like, every little detail. And I think it really, like, focused my attention a lot better, and gave me a lot more purpose and a lot more fulfillment in, like, everything that I did. So I feel like that was a very long-winded answer. But my point is definitely just, like, have a strong why. You know, and constantly ask yourself, like, constantly reevaluate. I don't think people ask themselves, like, enough, like, why they're doing something, and they sometimes just do things, like, blindly. And then that's how you, like, wake up one day and you're like, how did I get here? You know?
Absolutely. So we know that, you know, you took the bar. That was, of course, yes, we all know that was a challenge in itself. And we're winding down to now this week where the answers are coming down, and the anxiety must be really, really high.
It's so real.
So what are your feelings? How are you, you know, navigating this week? You must be really on edge.
I really haven't slept. I don't know if you see the bags, but, like, I really, like, I just keep checking my phone. Like, when are they going to come out? You don't know. If I keep saying, like, it feels like I'm about to
put
give
everyone
birth.
on notice that when you take the bar, the results do not come out very fast. It takes 3 months to get a result. So Sarah took her bar in July.
Yes.
And we're in October, and she's still waiting.
Well, it's usually the last week of October, or within, like, anywhere from the 20th to, like, the 30th, they release the results. But
So we're confident that you
Yeah.
did
Yeah.
very well.
Yeah.
Tell us what's next.
Yeah. What's your
So,
future?
wait, can I talk a little bit about
Yeah.
that more? Okay. But so I just like I said, like I keep checking my email and, you know, like I have no idea when the results are going to come out. And I remember after I took the bar, you know, I come home and everyone's cheering and so excited and they're like, congratulations, you took it. That's it. You're a lawyer now. I'm like, first of all, not a lawyer. And second of all, save the congratulations because I don't know how I did. And the truth is, I don't think anybody walks out of the bar like feeling like they passed, you know. All you know is the work that you put in. And I know that I put in like an honest effort of my work. I was like, you know what? I'm going to do everything that I can to only take this exam once. I did, you know, the entire Barbary course that I was supposed to do. I did a whole second course on top of that. You know, I tried to, you know, I spoke with Daniela a lot of phone calls, you know, asking how she studied, what she did, spoke to a lot of people, tried to like do what worked best for me as much as I could. And, you know, you never really feel ready, but I remember sitting at the bar and thinking, I looked around and I'm like, you know what? I did everything that I could. I did everything that I could to be here. And I remember my bar professor, she was just like, you're going to look around that first day and you're going to say, you know, somebody in this room is going to fail, but it's not going to be me, you know? And I remember, I'm like, I took her words and I was like, somebody in this room is going to fail and it's not going to be me because I worked hard and I feel like I did the best that I could. And that's all that I have going for me, you know? So hopefully, you know, the results will come out and they'll be favorable, but
You had an
that's
interesting
where it's
incident during
Yeah, I
your
was just
bar
gonna
exam.
mention that.
I
Please
think
share that incident.
someone went into cardiac arrest
Yeah.
during the
Oh
exam.
my
Tell us, how did
God.
you manage
Literally
to
at
stay
your center.
focused?
at my center. Oh God. The bar exam is a 2-day exam. The first day is all essays. The second day is multiple choice. So it's 200 in total, 100 in the morning, 100 in the afternoon. And then you have 3 hours in the morning session, 3 hours in the afternoon section, and a break for lunch. So it's like the end of the morning multiple choice section. Okay. Out of 100 questions, I remember I was like on like 96, 97. And I'm like that first row. So like the proctors are right in front of me. And then like there was like 1,000 people, you know, behind me. So all I see is the proctors and this like jumbotron with, you know, the timing, like counting down. And I'm like, you know, I have a few questions to go. Like I'm focusing and I just like see like all this commotion like happening in front of me and the proctors are like getting up and everybody's like going behind me and like something is going on. But I look at the time and I look at the exam. I'm like, there's like 5 minutes left and I have 3 questions to go. You know, like I need to finish and I can't look back. Like, I don't know what is going on. I cannot look back. I need to like finish and I need to focus on this. And like, I think that moral dilemma, you know, like it's every man for himself here, like at the bar.
it
Like,
really
like
is.
I don't care what is happening behind me. I need to finish. And I remember just like bubbling it in the back of my head. I'm like, what is going on? Because I had like the earplugs in, so I didn't really hear. But like you hear, like the fact that I was even like hearing stuff and I had the earplugs in was
very
like
distracting.
very distracting. So I like quickly bubble in. They
didn't
call
even stop the test.
They didn't
right?
stop the test. So that was a thing. They didn't stop the test. But I bubbled in. They stopped the time, and like something's going on. You know, I look back. I see there's like somebody lying on the floor, and all I see are legs. Like I don't see a head. I just see like legs. And like her like pants were a little up, like the skin was like really, really pale. I'm like, oh my God, like what is going on? Yeah. And there's like people that are crying and like, you know, we're getting ready to leave and they're like not saying anything. You know, like there's people on the floor doing CPR on somebody, you know, and they like weren't letting people get up. And then they finally were letting people like who were standing next to her to like get up. And like I'm looking at their faces that are like ashen, you know, like I don't know, something bad is happening, but no one knows like what is happening, you know? And we're kind of like filing out of the room. They're not saying anything. Like the first day to get out of that room for lunch, like took like 20 minutes in and of itself, you know? It was like, took so long. And everybody was just like rushed out. I see one of my friends and she's just looking at him. She goes like, I think she died. And I'm like, what? Yeah, she's like, I think she died. And like another one of my friends was like, yeah, I was telling them they need to call 911. Like no one is calling 911. And then they finally called 911. It was just crazy. You know, you walk out, they're handing out lunch. You just see like the ambulance like coming. And one of my friends goes like, don't worry, she didn't die because the ambulance lights are on. If she was dead, they'd be off. I'm like, good observation. You know, okay, like let's hope that she's not, you know, God forbid dead. So we come back for the afternoon section. Nobody really knows what's going on. And also my phone is in my car. I didn't even bring my phone to the testing center. So like, simultaneously my husband hears what's going on. He hears it's a woman. He's like, I don't know, could be my wife. And I'm not even, like, I can't call him because my phone's away. So like that was stressful. And then we get back for the afternoon section. They put a test on her chair, and obviously she didn't show up. And they didn't say anything. They didn't say one word. Nobody said anything about what was going on. We were just expected to come back, finish the test. I remember I couldn't even like eat lunch. Like I was like very like distraught. I'm like, what is going on?
Wow.
I couldn't really, I was just like, I just need to get through the day. Like I can't really like focus on this. And I think some people like took it really hard, especially the people that were right there and really saw it. It was only a few rows behind me, so I didn't see much. I definitely didn't see her face, which I think would have been really tough. And I also didn't know her, I can't imagine her friends, the people who went to school with her, what that was like. But it was definitely an experience. I think in terms of like the reactions that people had was mainly like how it was handled, that like especially in situations when like somebody's heart stops and you're doing CPR, like every minute counts. And I don't know how long they waited. But I really just hope that she's okay.
Yeah, let's hope that she's okay. And she's taking her, I guess, February exam.
I mean, who knows? Who knows if she could have passed by a day and a half, but you never know.
Not likely, but
you never know. But
a lot of questions.
But yeah.
But
so
we hope that she's okay for sure.
We wish her the best. Wow.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So what's next?
What's next? So I've been interviewing, applying for a lot of jobs. I'll be honest, it's been a little rough. Like I said, my father is an attorney, but I never really like wanted to work with him. I always felt like this is kind of my time to really do something that interests me, and get into an area of law that I care about and I want to learn about. But also I have 2 kids, I've had to decline a few high offers because, I can't deal with like the timing requirements that they want, very, very late hours, 5 days a week, like in person, which I understand, in the legal profession, you're not going to find like a 9 to 5 and an easy work-life balance. But I want to find something a little bit that works for me, maybe like a hybrid position. So thankfully I've had callbacks for second interviews this week. So I'm kind of excited about that, hoping that, they'll blossom into something, but it's been a little tough. I'll be honest, it's been a little tough.
So which field is it that you want to do? Workers' comp? Do you want to do something else?
So now you're getting into the workforce. What area of law interests you the most? And what do you want to do and why?
So what I really love is the like advising and counseling side of law. I really like corporate transactions, IP, licensing, that kind of thing. I guess I have a little background from my food account because, I'd work with a lot of small businesses that would reach out to me and things like that. And you really realize, like, in law school how broad, like, the law is. Like I said, it's not just court all day. And there's so much that you can do. Really working on these deals, really working with clients, really advising them on their livelihood and the businesses that they have. And that's really, like, the area that I want to work in. I really want to work with these kind of clients, really help them with their businesses, really help them grow, advising, that kind of thing. Maybe some real estate, maybe some licensing in those kinds of like fields, but like more transactional.
Amazing. Well, we're really excited to see what's next, and we'll be following you and your journey. And we want to really thank you for coming here today and sharing your experience. And I'm personally blown away. I don't know about you, Oksana.
I kept saying throughout the whole time, wow. So I would just say thank you. I think just hearing from you and your journey and your experience, and everything that you went through in law school. And what's amazing is that you're like, I did what I had to do, and I think you will inspire the next generation to be like, you know what, I'm gonna go in and do what I gotta do. And if more people thought like that, like you said, they would have an amazing law school experience and be more calmer about it as opposed to anxious, as most of us were when we were in law school. So I do just want to thank you for coming and sharing your story with us and inspiring the next generation and inspiring us, because it's like amazing what you went through. And I'm sure we will only see the best of in the future from you. So good luck.
Yeah, we wish you luck.
Whatever you do.
I just
and thank you again.
I also just want to say what I really love and appreciate about you, besides the fact that all the things that you do, you're an amazing friend from firsthand experience. And what I really love about you is like I see students on a daily basis. A lot of their motivation, as I mentioned in the previous episode, is not there behind like the inspiration to become a lawyer. And I love that you have that inspiration of what motivated you, that you wanted to do it for the right reasons. And I hope that you can continue to spread it amongst our community. And hopefully good news for the bar.
Yes.
Hopefully.
Good
But
luck.
Thank you guys so much
Thank you for
having
being
me.
with
It was
us.
really, really an honor to sit with you guys. You know, I look up to you both. I look up to you so much, Daniela. You know, it's really an honor. It's a pleasure. I'm so grateful that there's support out there. You know what I mean? And there's people out there. And like I said earlier, like the scariest thing is doubt, you know, like not knowing. And I think that's what scares people the most. Cause like you never know what kind of pregnancy you're gonna have. You never know what kind of baby you're gonna have. You never know like how it's gonna work out. And I also didn't know, but I was just like, I'm gonna make it work. Like whatever happens, I'm gonna make it work.
And that's the attitude you need to have.
And that's really the attitude that you need to have. I always tell people, I'm like, if you're type A and like everything needs to be, you can't do it. I always say like, I'm like a type lowercase a, you know, like not like a full A and not like a B, but like I'm somewhere in the middle, you know? You make it work. You also have to be good at time management. You have to be structured, but it'll work out. It'll work out. You know, if you just go for it, like it'll work out. It's not for everybody, but there's people who have done it and there's people that will do it. So you're not alone, and I'm always here, you know, always, you know, to help anybody, mentor people. I love mentoring people, so you know you can reach out to me on Instagram.
I think we should add her.
We'll add your links in the comments below, and to follow and share, and please, thank you,
Of course.
thank you so much.
Thank you.